Hello there, this is Josh with Core Reserve, and this video is going to be going over the sales summary. I am going to be doing just a general overview of all of the different filters that we have here. And then on the second half of this video, I'm also going to go over just some common use cases here. I'll go over some common ways that this report is typically set up, depending on the type of information that you are trying to get. For example, like if you are trying to reconcile with any sort of payment provider reporting, if you are trying to do cash basis reconciliation, or if you are trying to do something like get an instructor revenue report. But first, I'll go over just the different filters that we have here. So the top date filters that we have are going to be the feed date from and feed date to filters. This is going to be filtering fees based on when they are generated in the system. And one thing to remember there is the fees are going to be generated in the system, for example, when a member books a reservation or when they finalize their registration for an event or a league. So if it is January 30th and I go into my mobile app and I book a reservation for February 1st, the fee is going to be generated on January 30th when I book that reservation. So that's one thing to point out here. If you are looking to filter by when the reservation or the event or the league game day takes place, we would instead want to use the reservation date from and to filters. So below that, we are going to have the revenue categories filter. So if you do have revenue categories in your organization, we can filter revenue or payments just by specific revenue categories if that's the information we are looking for. We also can set the fee status. So right now with a fee status of all, we are going to be looking at both unpaid and paid fees on this report. If we want to take a look at just payments, we can switch the fee status to paid. And if we select paid, we will then get a new set of date filters, and these ones are going to be the payment date from and to. So if we just want to look at payments in the system, most of the time with the fee status set to paid, we are going to only want to be using the payment date from and to filters, since we are really just looking at when that payment was processed rather than when the fee linked to that payment was generated. We can also filter by payment types here. So if you're ever looking to run a report just purely on credit card payments or just e-check payments or a select mix of payment types, we can use the payment types filter. And below that, we are going to have the fee category drop-down field. These are just going to be some general categories that we have in the system, like reservation fees, lesson fees, event registration fees, membership fees, things like that. We also have some additional ones for point of sale or packages, some of those add-ons that we have in the system. So if you are looking to just quickly run a report that shows you the revenue on event registrations, we can filter by that fee category very quickly here. If you want to break that down even further, we do have the option of filtering by specific reservation and lesson types, and also specific event categories in the system. So if we want to take a look at the revenue we received last year on specifically adult clinics, we can do that by selecting the date filter that's appropriate depending on the information you are looking for, and then filtering by specific event categories or reservation types. We can also do the same with event tags if you are using event tags in the system. So if we have an adults tag, if we have an intermediate tag, that's just another way that we can filter the event fees that would be showing up on this report here. So this is sort of grouped in with the reservation types and the event categories. It's just another way that we can filter the fees that are being picked up on this report. We can also filter by specific memberships. So if we are just looking at the fees that were generated for a specific membership type, we can filter by membership types here. And then next to that, we are going to have the instructors field. So this will allow us to say, I only want to take a look at the revenue that was received for lessons or events that were assigned to this specific instructor. And I'll have a use case set up that I'll go over in the second half of this video if you are looking for running an instructor revenue report. So that goes over all of the main filters here, but the last thing that I want to point out here is going to be the output type dropdown. We have a few different ways that you can run this report, and each different output type is going to organize and also show information in different ways depending on the information you are looking for. So I'll start off with the summary output type. Let me go back on the payment date range just so I can get some data to show up here when I run these. So with the summary output type, this is going to categorize the fees by those different fee categories, but each fee category will also be expandable with this plus button here. So we will be able to take a look at the total revenue for event categories, but we can also get that broken down by each event category we have in the system. So this will give us just some overall total numbers. We can see the tax amount that was received here as well. And it will sort of break this down by the different membership fees, event categories, reservation types that we have in the system. We'll also be able to take a look at the revenue categories that are linked to these different event categories, reservation types, and things like that. So this will be more of a summary view. If you are looking to get a breakdown that will show just each fee that is creating this total here in more detail, we can switch over to the detail output type. This would show us each fee or each refund that is included in this date range and these filters that we are using to run this report. So this is going to look a little bit more like our transaction list report, where we can actually see a table of each fee that we have in the system. For events, we'll be able to see things like the event name that this fee is linked to. We'll be able to see the member or the family this fee is linked to. So this would just be a different table layout for a more detailed view of the reporting we are getting here. We have a revenue categories output type. So if you are looking to get those totals or those tax amounts broken down by the different revenue categories you have set up in your organization, we can use this output type. We'll be able to see the GL code for each revenue category that we have here. And again, we'll be able to see subtotal. We'll be able to see that tax amount, and then we'll be able to see all of that together in the total column here. So this will be broken down by the different revenue categories that you have set up in your organization. The next output type here is the sales tax output type, and this one will give us a detailed view, just breaking down our fees by those different fee categories. And here we will be able to see the exempt sales, so those sales that don't have any tax rate included, and then also the taxable sales. So that will be broken down here. We will also have all of the tax rates that you have in your organization in their own separate column. So we can see how much we received, for example, in point of sale under this specific tax rate and each specific tax rate that we have in the system. So each tax rate will be broken down on this report. We will also have a total tax collected, and then we will also get a gross sales and a net sales column here. So the sales tax report can be pretty helpful there, a pretty powerful output type that we can choose from. The next one is going to be revenue by payment type. So this report is going to be broken down by revenue categories. We'll have each revenue category under its own row here. And then we'll have a column that includes the GL code for the revenue category, but also a column for each payment type that you are using in your organization. So here we would be able to take a look at each revenue category and see, how much we received in credit card payments under that revenue category, or how much we received in cash under a specific revenue category. So this will be broken down by each revenue category and also by each payment type that you have in your organization. And we will also be able to see refunds here if we are going to be including refunds on this report. While I'm bringing up refunds, one thing that I will also point out here is we can change the fee status to refunds only. And this will allow us to filter this report based on when the refund was processed in the system here. So, if I want to take a look at all refunds that were processed for, a certain quarter, half of the year, full year, we would be able to also change that fee status to refunds only if needed. But the last output type here is going to be the fee category output type. So these are going to be those same categories that we have in the fee category filter before we run the report. But this will allow us to just see those subtotals, those tax amounts, and those totals for each fee category. Again, like for example, reservation fees, event registration fees, convenience fees, how much we are receiving in point of sale, and things like that. So again, this is just going to be some general different categories that we have in the system. All right, so that goes over the filters that we have on the sales summary, what each of them do, and also those different output types. So now I'm going to go over some best use cases here, some common ways that this report is ran, and I'll just go over the setup there to make sure you are setting this up correctly and you are getting the accurate information that you would like to receive. All right, so the first setup that I will show you here is going to be for if we are looking to do some reconciliation with your payment provider and you just want to get some reporting in Court Reserve that matches up with that payment provider reporting. Since we are looking at the payment provider, the first thing we'll want to do is change the fee status to paid, and we'll want to use the payment date from and to filters. We'll really want to make sure that we don't have any date selected for the fee date from and to or the reservation date from and to, because that will affect our reporting. And since we are really only looking at payments that were processed, we'll want to make sure we are only using these date filters here. So I'll just set up a date range here. The next thing we'll want to do is we'll want to filter the payment types that we are filtering by when we run this report. So since we are only looking at online payments that were processed with the payment provider, we will want to make sure we are only filtering by credit card and e-check. Anything else, any other payment type, would not be done through the payment provider, so we'll want to make sure those are not included in this reporting. Once we run that report, this will show us how much was processed with that payment provider under these payment dates here. And these are the numbers that you can use when you are reconciling with your payment provider reporting. The next setup I'll go over here is a cash basis reconciliation. So if we are trying to include those other payment types like cash, other, and things like that, we'll want to have the same setup here. The only change we'll want to do is we'll want to filter by some additional payment types. So we would really want to include cash, manual credit card, check, gift card, and other. The main things we'll want to keep out here are balance payments and manual adjustments in the system, since those will all be done with balance credit, and that will all sort of be internal with Court Reserve. The filters that we have set up here are also going to give us the same totals that we have on the end of day report. So if you are running the end of day report and you just want to get a more detailed breakdown of those totals you are seeing, setting up the sales summary with these filters is going to give you that same total. And then from there, you can break down that information however you'd like to, depending on the output type that you select when you run this report. The last common use for this report that I'll go over is if we are looking for instructor revenue and we want to run an instructor revenue report. So in this case, we'll want to be using the reservation date from and to filters here, since we would want to be looking at the revenue that an instructor has received so far, depending on when those lessons took place and the date range that we want to take a look at. So, for example, maybe I want to take a look at how much revenue was received under a specific instructor so far for this current year of 2024. I will be filtering by reservation date from of January 1st, 2024 to reservation date to of February 16th, 2024. And this will include all fees for lessons, reservations, or events that have taken place so far this year. We'll want to keep the fee status to all if we are wanting to also include unpaid fees in this report. And then from there, we can filter by the specific instructor or instructors. When we run this report, if we are using the summary output type, this will give us the overall totals, but it will also break down those event categories and those reservation types. Let me actually set the reservation date a little bit further back just so I can get some more data on this reporting, give you a better example. So here, right now, what we are seeing is reservations that have taken place from January 1st, 2023 to February 16th, 2024. And this is any lesson, reservation, or event that is linked to this specific instructor. So here we're going to get overall totals. We're also going to get that broken down on the summary output type by specific event categories and specific lesson and reservation types. All right, and that goes over some common ways that this report is used with many organizations and just going over how you would want to set up this report in order to get that information that you are looking for. If you have any additional questions, always feel free to reach out to our live chat team. You can do so by clicking the green button in the top right corner.